This video explains how to prevent the if-else function from turning dates into numeric in the R programming language. So without too much talk, let's dive into the R code. In this video I will show you several examples, and for all of these examples we need to create a vector of example dates, as you can see in lines 2 to 5 of the code. So after running these lines of code, a new vector object called myDates is appearing at the top right, and we can print the content of this data object to the RStudio console by running line 6 of the code. And then you can see at the bottom that we have created a vector object which contains 4 different dates. Now let's assume that we want to apply the if-else function to this vector of dates to perform a certain operation. Then we might use the if-else function, as you can see in lines 8 to 10 of the code. And in this case, I'm also storing the output of the if-else function in a new data object that I'm calling out.base. So after running lines 8 to 10 of the code, some output of the if-else function is returned. We can also print the output of this function at the bottom in the console by running line 11 of the code. However, now you can see that the output of the if-else function shows numeric values. We can also double check that by applying the class function to our output, as you can see in line 13 of the code. And this function confirms that the if-else function has converted our date objects to the numeric class. So if we want to prevent this conversion to numeric, we have basically 2 different alternatives. And the first alternative is based on the dplyr package. And the example in which I'm showing you how to use the dplyr package for this is starting in line 15 of the code. So in lines 15 and 16 of the code, I'm first installing and loading the dplyr package. I have installed the dplyr package already, so for that reason I'm just going to load it with line 16 of the code. And then in the next step, I'm using the if-else function of the dplyr package. And you might already notice a little difference. The if-else function of the dplyr package also contains an underscore between if and else, so the function is called slightly differently compared to the if-else function of base R. And then within the dplyr if-else function, I'm specifying exactly the same syntax as in the previous example when I have applied the if-else function of base R to this syntax. And I'm storing the output of this if-else function in another data object that I'm calling out.dplyr. So after running lines 18 to 20 of the code, you can see that this out.dplyr data object is appearing at the top right as well. And if we print the content of this data object to the console by running line 21 of the code, you can see that our date format was kept, even though we have applied an if-else operation to our dates. We can also check the class of our new data object out.dplyr by applying the class function once again, as you can see in line 23 of the code. And then you can see that our data object has the date class instead of the numeric class. It's also possible to use the data.table package for this task, and this is what I will show you in the next example, starting in line 25 of the code. So as a first step, we also need to install and load the data.table package, as you can see in lines 25 and 26. I have installed this package as well, so for that reason I'm just going to load it with line 26 of the code. And then in the next step, I'm going to apply the if-else function to our syntax. So you might notice once again that the function is called slightly differently. So in this case, the function is called if-else instead of if-else. And as in the previous examples, I'm storing the output of this function in another data object that I'm calling out.dtable. So after running lines 28 to 30 of the code, this new data object is appearing at the top right, and we can print the data object by running line 31 of the code. And then you can see that once again we have kept our date structure, and if we check the class of our new data object out.dtable, we can see that we have kept the date class. That's all I wanted to explain in this video. In case you want to learn more on this topic, you may check out my homepage statisticsglobe.com, because on my homepage I have recently published a tutorial in which I'm explaining the content of this video in some more detail. I will put a link to this tutorial into the description of the video so you can find it there. If you have liked this video or if you have any questions, let me know in the comments section below. I'll try to respond to all comments as soon as I can. Furthermore, make sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel to get notified about future video releases. I have already published about 500 videos on this channel and I'm releasing new videos on a daily basis. Thanks a lot for watching. See you in the next video.